All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Confido Legal Friday Legal Case Management Jam session. I'm super excited this week to be talking with Julia Taylor. She's the CEO and founder of Lev Legal, and has Lev Legal has helped hundreds of law firms in the past, and actually currently is working with hundreds of law firms doing outsourced paralegal services, billing, administration, and technology setup. And that's going to be the focus of the talk today. We're going to focus generally on the topic of how to bring your entire team along when you're getting ready to do a software transition. So it's really easy for one person at the firm to get very excited about a transition, but it's quite another thing to bring everyone along and get everybody excited, or at the very least bought into a transition. So it's great to be talking with Julia, who has so much experience doing this, like I said, for hundreds of law firms. So I'll turn it over to her for kind of a brief intro, and then we'll let the conversation wander from there.
Yeah, thank you. Like we said, I spend most of my time now in legal tech and looking through and learning all the software out there. It's super overwhelming, and that's what I hear most often from my law firm clients is we're overwhelmed with what's out there, where we've picked something and we don't know what to do from here. And so we kind of try to fill in that gap in addition to helping with all the other back office and front office things that go on and that solo attorneys and small firms need to kind of operate.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So what you talked about kind of getting overwhelmed, with the options out there. What are you seeing? And this is a little off topic. We'll get back to our topic, but like what are you seeing? How do firms kind of go wrong at the beginning of the process? When they're kind of evaluating systems, like what goes wrong at the kind of the front end of the process?
Yeah, I think there's several things. Number one, they pick the wrong software for their practice. Sometimes you go with what's popular or what's been recommended, but it's not always the best fit for your practice. Like your practice focuses solely on personal injury, then you want to make sure that you have a software that's set up for personal injury so you're not digging for things and making your job more difficult. So I think definitely picking the wrong software or starting too many tech projects at once. So if you're going to start a new software, finish that and implement that before adding 3 or 4 other things at the same time for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I assume you've done this, but have you ever had to kind of roll back a decision that a firm has already made? Like they come to you and say, hey, can you help us implement this? And you're like, you got to kind of start from scratch.
Yes, all the time, and it goes back to, hey, this isn't the best software for your practice and what your team needs to be efficient and productive. And so, a lot of times it's sad because they've invested a lot of money or time into a software, but I'm that person that's like, hey, I don't think this is right. And before we spend any more time or money in this program, let's look at something that will get more participation and be a better tool for your staff.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'd love to dive more into that, but I'll try to get us back on our topic for today. That could be a topic for another time. So looking at buy-in, like I said, it's so easy for one person to get excited about a system. So tell me a little bit about like, what do you recommend in kind of the decision-making process? How do if you're talking to like a managing partner, kind of the senior administrator, what do you recommend that they do to kind of bring people along, other members of the team, get them excited and not feel like this was kind of forced upon them?
Yeah, I think if you can, and I know some firms are massive and can't do this, but if you can, really get your team involved in the process. Ask them what's important to them. Ask them if you have another software that you're currently using, like what things aren't working in this software that if we do make a change, you'd like to see. So I definitely think getting participation and getting that feedback from the beginning definitely helps. If you just pick something without any input or feedback and then you dump it on your staff, that's when problems arise for sure.
Mm-hmm. What would you say, like, do you see, like, who typically is the first person that will initiate the conversation about a new system, at a firm? Like, is it the person that's implementing it, or do you see it's kind of like someone else, maybe a managing partner or something like that, that's making the decision? Then it's kind of, you know, sort of trickling down from there, or does it go up? Like, what have you seen out there?
Yeah, it definitely varies. I think that sometimes the legal field falls behind in technology. And
Mhm.
so sometimes you get a new employee who just comes in and was like, well, this is what my firm did. Um,
Yeah.
and it was so much better and we were so much more efficient. And so then
Mhm.
that just, sets off a light bulb for a managing partner or something. And they're like,
Mhm.
okay, well, let's look into this. You get a lot of people who are just starting out. I think, who have left bigger firms who have very intimidating software that they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on, and that doesn't work when you're starting your own firm. And
Yeah.
so they're having those conversations about, how can I build, technology that works for me as a solo, but
Mhm.
also helps me grow and add on team members in the future. So I see a lot of that as well. And then, you just sometimes management changes, you get a new leadership and they see areas for improvement and start having those conversations with
Mhm.
managing partners and things like that for sure.
Interesting. Interesting. For anybody in the legal technology community who's listening, that might be an interesting sales tip.
Yeah.
Looking for those new team members who had a history at other firms, it might be a good time to engage that firm for a transition. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked in big law and you get spoiled, right? And you just it feels like an unlimited amount of resources. And it's like, so how do I give big firm service now with my small firm budget? And so there are a lot of tools out there that can do that. It's just, it
Mhm.
can be very overwhelming to find the right tech stack for you for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Got it. So kind of what I'm hearing is it can go sort of both ways. It can be initiated by, maybe a new team member coming on board that has some experience at different firms, or it can be initiated, by a strategic, someone with strategic oversight, maybe the managing partner, if it's the solo attorney, who then might give it to somebody else to actually implement. So
Yeah, absolutely.
if a firm is bringing in outside help to help with a software transition, how would you recommend involving them in the same way that you would like a team member to get buy-in, or is the process different in that case?
Yeah, I think it depends. There's a lot of software out there that will walk a firm through the setup and do it for them, and that's, included in the services. But there are
Mhm.
also a lot of services out there that don't offer that support, and that's where like outsourcing it to a technology consultant is really important. And
Mhm.
from experience, I like to talk to the staff first and ask
Mhm.
the managing partner, firm administrator, like, hey, can I talk to the staff and figure out what's working? What would be your dream setup? And I think that's really important to have those conversations just
Mhm.
as somebody from the outside coming in, and you'll find that they're a lot more open and honest with
Yeah.
you. Like, this part is really bad and this part is super ancient and this is what we need. And, I
Mhm.
think that helps jumpstart those conversations for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. What if that doesn't happen, those conversations don't happen, like what are some of the signs that you've seen of maybe pushback, resistance, outright sabotage?
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Change change
yeah.
is hard, right? And, there are a lot of people who have been in this profession for 20, 30, 40 years, and it's just really hard to get them, out of that. I remember, I grew up on Microsoft Office. In my first law firm job, the attorneys and the older paralegals were still using Word Perfect, and I knew nothing about it. And the firm administrator I was working with at the time, she was like, okay, we can't use this anymore. They don't update it. It just doesn't work. And we stayed overnight and deleted Word Perfect from everyone's computer and installed the Microsoft Office suite. And I just remember hearing all the yelling and things like that. So I don't suggest that, but it's just always a funny story that I tell. You at some point you have to come up to date. They're
Mhm.
like clients are looking for that. They want to be able to work with firms that are super tech savvy, that allow them to sign documents from their phone and not
Mhm.
have to come down to the office every time they need to sign something or
Mhm.
meet with an attorney. So, I think that's part of it too. Like, hey, you can double your revenue, you can triple your revenue because now you're opening up the doors for people that really need these
Hmm.
technology pieces. And, and maybe instead of being here to 7 o'clock at night, this new technology will get you out the door at 5 o'clock. So I think just having those conversations and really highlighting what these changes will do for like work-life balance and
Hmm.
increasing revenue, those sorts of things, I think will definitely help.
Interesting. Have you seen situations where maybe members of the team look at that almost negatively, like this is going to take my job and I'm concerned about, automating this because this is a big part of what I do? Do you see that pushback?
Yeah, I'm hearing that a lot, especially with all the AI tools that are popping
Mhm.
out, but I don't foresee there not being a need for a paralegal or a legal secretary or an attorney anytime soon. You
Yeah.
just find other ways to be useful to the firm and to your clients and add value. A good example, I'll use personal injury again. If you're not having to type letters of rep by hand and those things, because those documents are automated, you have more time to invest in investigating into the cases
Mhm.
and adding value in that way. And so you are still useful and needed. You're just needed in different ways for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, have you ever seen kind of software get implemented and someone get, laid off or fired as a result of basically automating away their job?
No, no, I think it leaves room for more work. And, your caseload might double or triple, but the amount
Yeah.
of work that you're doing has gone down. So I think it evens out. I have not seen anyone, oh,
Mhm.
we're gonna use this AI so we don't need you anymore. I have not seen
Yeah.
that conversation yet. So, and I think we're a very long way from that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you've definitely seen a lot of firms, so that's a really good data point there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I'm curious, in a similar vein, the person, and this could be an administrative staff member or even a managing partner that loves control and loves not having the automation and not having the software, because they can, control that, every which way that certain task could happen, they can control it. The one that we see a lot is like posting payments. You can build or buy or build software that will automatically post payments to your invoices or trust deposits. How should someone think about bringing on a team member that loves that control, and like doesn't want to give it up and is pushing back on new software because it prevents them from having the control that they're used to?
Yeah, I've heard this saying before, and I can't remember who it came from, but it says, if you don't evolve, you'll evaporate, right? And I think you just don't want to get left behind, and you just have to have those hard conversations. And it's like, it's nice that you have this control and that you take, 2 weeks to do this project. But if you had this tech in place, you could do this project in 2 days.
Mhm.
Your clients going to appreciate that and send more business your way, and you're going to grow. And it's just about evolving, and you have to just have those difficult conversations. Like, you're going to get left behind if you don't
Mhm.
adapt to this technology, or you're just going to be stuck in the same
Mhm.
revenue or you know plateau that you've been in. It's hard to grow without growing with the times, for sure. So it's just really about having those difficult conversations and finding a way to ensure that the technology has those things in place. And that goes back to picking the right software for your firm. What's going to allow me to go in and check those post-it payments really quickly
Yes.
so I feel good about it, or who has the best customer service so that I can call when I have a question, and that makes me feel good instead of waiting, hours for someone to respond to a support email. Things like that are really important as well to kind of help give up the reins for sure.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, we talked to one firm, where the person had so much control over the process that they had named. There was a spreadsheet that had been used for years that was named after this person, and they didn't want to give up their named spreadsheet for doing all this work. So that's interesting. We've talked a lot about kind of like the negatives. Like, what are some signs that things are going well? Like that you actually did do the process well, you got buy-in. Like, what is it on go live day?
Yeah.
What puts a smile on your face?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the softwares that allow you to do really robust reporting is the first place to start. And I think everything out there has reporting functions at this point in time. But, looking at utilization rates, looking at billing rates, looking at how fast work is being completed and uploaded and checked off a task list. If you can track efficiency and that goes up because of the implementation of tech, I think that's great. I'm working with a firm and they do a couple different things, and we implemented a new software along with some other things, but we looked at their revenue on a month by month basis. And the first couple months after that new software was implemented, the revenue shot up. And it's because
That's
they're
awesome.
able to track things better and
Mhm.
bill quicker and generate documents faster. So I think looking at those metrics and seeing and then going back to talking to your staff, like, hey, is this working for you? What positives have you seen? What negatives have you seen? What do we need to tweak? So it's having
Mhm.
those conversations constantly, and I would say quarterly, like
Mhm.
looking at your software and what you're using quarterly and having those conversations with your staff just to make sure what was working in quarter one is still working in quarter two, and it matches the reporting and the metrics that you set up.
Mhm. Interesting. What obviously selecting the software is important, selecting the right software, but you and I were talking before this about, some of the things that aren't necessarily coded into the software,
Mhm.
like support and implementation and data migration. How do those non software things impact the people that maybe didn't make the decision
Mhm.
to go with this new system, but will be impacted by some of these things? Like what are the stakes if you don't consider those, or anything on that topic that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I definitely think it goes back to when you're looking at the best software, it's not always the one that looks the best or promises you the most. I really would read and reviews on their customer service and technical support. Those things are really, really important. And what good is a software if something goes wrong, you can't reach out and get it fixed? We rely so heavily on software, and it's hard to manage a business or manage a practice without it. So I think just asking those questions, what type of support do you offer during the onboarding process? What do you do for us? What are we expected to do as a firm? And after that's done, what support is available to us? Is it, going back and reading support manuals or videos? Is it
Mhm.
calling? Can we reach out to our consultant at any point in time? So I think those conversations are really important. And if the software that you have chosen doesn't have that, then you really should look at hiring somebody to be that champion for your firm, because
Mhm.
that can get really overwhelming to be responsible for automating all your documents and workflows and
Mhm.
automations. So if they're not going to do it, then having a plan in place so that doesn't fall on you or your staff for sure.
Interesting. Do you see a trend in either direction of case management software going towards sort of more outsourcing of support and like onboarding, data migration, that type of thing, or more of a trend of bringing it in house?
I think I've seen more of the outsourcing it, but I think that companies would be at an advantage to have those resources available in-house. And I think that's where a lot of frustration when I hear clients saying they're leaving a software, it's because they didn't get the support they need, or they didn't even get to utilizing the software because the onboarding process was so tedious and so
Mm-hmm.
stressful, or the person that was supposed to be helping them didn't know enough about the software or didn't get things done quickly. And that's where companies are losing firms. So definitely having in-house support and someone there to champion the firm from start to finish and
Mm-hmm.
get them to the finish line as quickly as possible. That's what I'm recommending to my clients, those programs that do that for sure.
Yeah, interesting. I was just having a conversation with the team at Locus, the case management, practice
Mhm.
management solution, a few days ago, and they were saying that they were pretty committed to kind of doing the data migrations
Mhm.
and onboarding support in house, and we were talking about how much of a competitive advantage that is now. With they were seeing a trend of just like you were saying of more outsourcing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I have seen firms spend tens of thousands of dollars on a software, and then, I was saying I've seen a lot of firms spend a lot of money, on the
Mm-hmm.
software to be stuck or get a bill for thousands of more dollars because they need their data migrated or they need their contacts imported, that sort of thing. So
Mhm.
again, just having those conversations before you sign a contract, before you pay
Mhm.
the first month's invoice or whatever it is, like what support are you going to give my firm and what do you expect us to do
Mhm.
during this process?
Yeah. Yeah. Such an overlooked area of the transition to new software for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. So, well, I have so many more questions I'd love to pepper you with, but we're getting kind of towards the end. And I'd love maybe, Julia, you could talk a little bit about kind of, what you do, how can you help, how can Love Legal help a firm that's considering a software transition?
Yeah,
I know you
absolutely.
did more than that, but since
Yeah.
that's kind of the topic of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we as a team have learned the ins and out of every software out there. So there's no allegiance to, hey, you have to use software A because we get paid to do it, right? Software A is great, but look at software B because I think it would really help your firm. So we look at it from a very neutral standpoint, realizing again, like we talked about earlier, that it's not a one size fits all and what works for one firm might not work for your firm.
Mhm.
And then, we fill in those gaps. So if you really like software A, but they're only going to automate 2 documents for you, but you don't have time to do the other 100 documents that you want automated, we fill in that gap. So in between what the software company will offer you and what you need for your firm. They might just do one workflow, but you need 10. So we'll help you build those other 9 workflows, that sort of thing.
Nice, nice. And I've dropped a link to your website in the comments here of the stream. Is that the best way for folks to get in touch, or any other ways that you would prefer?
No, the website's the best way to get in touch. There's a contact form. There's a link to schedule a free consultation to talk about the software that you're using and the hiccups that you're having and how we can help. I try to get back to everyone within 24 hours, and we'll give you a timeline of when we can realistically get things done and go through those stages and hopefully help you fully utilize the software that you have or transition you to something that works better for your practice.
Awesome, awesome. Well, really appreciate your time, Julia. I'll give a little plug to our legal case management software hub. It's confidolegal.com/LCM for legal case management. And you can do a little software consult there. There's a database of case management systems you can browse and filter, and also some FAQs. And we'll definitely put this up on the FAQ section for folks who are looking to bring their team along on a software transition and not drag them kicking and screaming. So yeah, really appreciate your time, Julia. We'll give everyone at least the East Coast folks go to their weekends, maybe a little bit early, and we'll see everyone next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much.